Yeah, good morning everybody. Welcome to Panda Conf. You'll never guess why we're slightly delayed. Thank you. Ryanair have just arrived. Give them a round of applause. Okay, so we got a lot to get through in the next 3 days. There's quite a lot of people. There's quite a lot of important people. There's the disrupted. There are the disruptors. There's marketing people, technology people, and marketologists, which I was told this morning is what you lot mostly are, crossover people. So we're going to cover a lot. Last year, if you've been here, a lot of people asked us, why is it called PandaConf? And a lot of you got back to us, and we're going to do it again this year. So the first person to get the right answer as to why this is called PandaConf gets stuff from Ryanair, I'm sure. Yeah, he says yeah. So I want you to use the app, and during the day, give us your inspirational thoughts on why this is called PandaConf. There is actually a logic, I'm told. Okay, so get on the app and use it. Now, in terms of interaction, again, there's quite a lot we have to do today. We're going to move at a pace. We won't have time really for Q&A, maybe exceptionally. So again, use the app if you want to feedback to people. You can feedback to me, Noel Tulin, or you can feedback to the people that are coming up. Okay? Right. Now, this is supposed to be, it says here on the app, it says it's the world's premier conference for marketeers and technologists, so you need to act like that, okay? So lots of insights. Please listen. It ain't, unfortunately, like the panda, this is not black and white. There's a lot of gray going to be here today, and I want you to think about that and gather your thoughts on those insights, okay? So we have a lot of things to cover. Today is kind of more top level. We've got some brands here, brands that you would know from the travel business. We have got some rock stars of ages ago from the ad world, and we have some new disruptors as well. So there's quite a lot to be getting on with. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to bring up Kenny Jacobs from Ryanair. Give him one of those noisy receptions. You know the thing when they land, Ryanair makes that awful noise. Give it back to him. Now's your chance. Kenny Jacobs, in conversation with Lara O'Reilly of the Wall Street Journal. Well done, Lara.
All right. Good morning, everybody. It's really good to see so many of you here this morning. Now, I'm sure many of you probably arrived this week via a Ryanair flight, so I'm guessing a few of you might have a few questions for Kenny. Hopefully, we'll get a lot of this covered in our session this morning. So, Kenny, you've been with Ryanair since 2014.
Yep.
And under your leadership, you've been working to kind of turn around the brand and turn around the perception of Ryanair. And I understand you have a program called Always Getting Better, which doesn't seem like that much of a lofty aspiration, if I'm honest. But
it's an ongoing
tell me all
journey.
about it.
Always Getting Better, we started 4 years ago. I think it's been one of the things that's changed Ryanair the most, and Ryanair has probably changed more than any airline in the world in the past 4 years. Always Getting Better, it's really simple, and you never get there. So it's a program of ongoing continuous improvement at Ryanair. It has brought significant digital change into the business. If I go back 4 years ago when I started, we didn't have an app, we didn't keep and use any customer data, and now we have 27 million people using Ryanair's app. It's the most used airline app in Europe, for example. We've greatly improved the product, so if you fly with Ryanair, in particular for families and for business travelers, we've really just taken off the rough edges to being a Ryanair customer that used to exist. Ryanair did need to improve, and it has improved greatly for shareholders, for customers, and for everybody who works at Ryanair. So I think Always Getting Better has driven demand. 4 years ago, 82% of our seats were filled on a typical Ryanair flight, and now that's 95%. And those numbers speak for themselves. We are much bigger, we're much busier, because we've broadened the appeal of Ryanair and getting more and more Europeans to fly Ryanair.
And you're sure that's not just an organic thing because you've been around for longer? How do you kind of measure the change in brand perception?
We measure the change in brand perception. We would look at Net Promoter Score of each market we fly in. We look at Net Promoter Score of the people who actually fly with us.
So how are you doing? Where are you on that scale?
We've made incredible progress in the past 4 years. In the past 2 months, yes, we've had a dent in that, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And we also use something called Rate My Trip. So I'm a great believer. Net Promoter Score, there's plenty of brands out there that will have a great Net Promoter Score, but they're losing market share. So you have to, as a marketeer, really say, well, what's the real metric? We started something called Rate My Trip. And every month we get about 250,000 Ryanair customers who, just when the plane lands in the Ryanair app, will give us a quick rating of the boarding experience, the flying experience, the service on board, the food and drink on board. So that's real-time feedback from your actual customers while sat on your aircraft. So that is the most accurate information that we have, that we would use to say, okay, do we need to make some improvements in these particular airports, on these particular routes, or for these particular customers?
And do you do some kind of shopping around as well? The mystery shopping, is that something that you
Yeah,
take
we
part
do.
in?
We do mystery flying on our own aircraft. I probably fly with us, I'd say, at least 3 times a week. And then from time to time, we'll obviously fly with other airlines to say, do we like anything else on another airline that we might consider?
So what do you like about other airlines?
I like some things about AirAsia. I think they're doing a really good, interesting job in Asia. There are things I like about Wizz. There are things I like about Vueling, things I like about Norwegian.
What things though? What kind of things are you going to take over?
I think we would always look at things like crew, the in-flight menu, the seats, the aircraft interiors, not too much about their websites, but we'll keep a very open mind. We're not afraid to copy. I think a lot of marketing these days, you just have to execute really, really quickly and keep a very open mind to your competitor set, but also other industries. As much as I've said there's those airlines, we probably leverage as much from retailers as we do from other airlines.
Sure. And let's go through some of those technical innovations then, as we are at kind of Web Summit. You mentioned the app. What else are you doing on the digital front?
So on the digital, the key things I would call out, we've set up My Ryanair, and this is the account function. So at the moment, we've got about 32 million customers who are members of My Ryanair, and this is growing significantly. This is the membership program, which up until now, you tell us who you are, tell us what you're looking to do, and we'll use that information to give you a better booking experience on the Ryanair platform. That's been a big game changer for the platform, because it's giving us a much richer data asset that we can then use to target those customers with improved products that we can sell them. We've launched Ryanair Rooms, so we've moved from working with 1 OTA to working with 5 OTAs, and this is a type of meta platform for accommodation. And I think over the coming 3 years, this will be one of the most interesting things as we kind of bring you everything from hotels to villas to B&Bs. At the moment, we've got about 2.5 million properties that you can buy there. And later on today, we're going to be announcing some changes to Ryanair Rooms, including something called travel credits, which I think will be an interesting new dimension to that part of the platform. Other than that, then, there is a new release of the website, of the app, going live almost every month. And that program of continuous improvement, that's really what it's about, just eking out every single last 0.001 of conversion improvement that you can get across the platform.
So you just gave us a scoop there. So Ryanair travel credits, you said?
Yeah, this is going to be some type of an incentive that we launch to get you booking more and more accommodation on Ryanair Rooms.
Okay, interesting stuff. So, okay, we've got to come round to it then.
Yeah.
This summer, what on earth went wrong?
Well, nothing went wrong this summer. We had a fantastic summer. We had 97% load factors all the way through to the end of August. In early September, we discovered...
Sorry, it was an Indian summer.
It was an Indian summer. In early September, we did have a problem, and this was a self-inflicted management issue in how we roster pilot hours. So what happened was we ended up with a lot of our pilots having to take a months-long vacation in September, October, November, December, because all of our pilots were moving to a new calendar year, which finished on the end of December rather than the end of March as it had done the previous year. So this sounds simple, but it was a self-inflicted thing on our side, and we ended up having to cancel 700,000 passengers' flights, which sounds like a lot, and we really took that decision very, very slowly, because we really didn't want to do that. I would put that in the context of that's about 0.5% of the people who will fly with Ryanair in a typical year. So I think the media have made it sound like a big deal. It's 0.5% of the traffic, and that is a big deal. It is a very big deal. Fortunately, not a huge amount of people were stuck. So what we ended up doing was cancelling flights far into the future. So these weren't that heavily booked, and essentially what we did was we reduced the frequencies on certain flights. So we would take Dublin, London, for example, where we will fly 8 times a day, we went down to 7 frequencies. I'm happy to say that within 2 weeks, 98% of the people who were affected had generally been put on another Ryanair flight, or if they wanted to take a refund, they took a refund. So look, this wasn't ideal, and we do say sorry to all those customers who were impacted. The reason we took the decision was because we wanted to protect our punctuality and our schedule. So other than low fares, punctuality is the second biggest reason that customers choose Ryanair. And typically we want to have punctuality over 90%. So that's why we took that decision. So again, we're sorry. It was a mistake on our part. I think we have recovered already, because as I look at forward bookings, they're very strong, and we expect that to continue. We'll heavily discount and we'll offer good punctuality, and I think in time, already I can say that a lot of the customers who've been affected have already booked a Ryanair flight. So we've learned from it. We won't make the mistake again. We won't make the same mistake again, and I think, going forward we'll be fine.
So what proportion have rebooked though? You say many have?
Many, I won't give you the exact number, but we're nearly at the majority of customers having rebooked another Ryanair flight, which I think means, look, our product and our brand is really, really robust. This wasn't ideal. I think some parts of the media got hold of this and said, oh, there's chaos at Ryanair, or pilots don't want to work at Ryanair. That couldn't be further from the truth. We employ 4,200 pilots. We've hired another 1,000 pilots this year. We're Europe's biggest, but we're also Europe's fastest.
And you're giving them incentives, pilots. Right, to make sure
absolutely. There are things we need to improve in the pilot area, but we've set out a plan now that we want to become the most desirable place for pilots to work in Europe, and that will work. And I think that will take away any issue that we've had, and customers don't need to worry. There aren't going to be any more cancellations.
And so as the CMO, you're essentially the comms guy as well, and you mentioned that there was a bit of a frenzy in the papers when this story first came out. Kind of looking back, what do you think you might have been able to do better to kind of communicate the situation and calm down some of those headlines?
I think the most.
What would you do in the future if there was a volcano eruption or something? And
I think
similar happened?
The first thing I would say is actually don't get too upset about it. I think your audience is your customer and not necessarily the media. And I think, look, the media have a particular love-hate relationship with Ryanair. And so when you are in extreme difficulty, as we were, what you don't do is engage the media, because then I think you're not focusing on the key audience, which is customers. So I said I'm very proud of the response that we made, in that within 2 weeks, 98% of the customers who were affected had either been put on another Ryanair flight or have received a refund. That's much more important for me than talking to the media so that they get the headlines right. I think we quickly discovered, look, they were going to write what they want to write. They thought there was a great story in Ryanair management versus pilots. We're inside in the business going, well, we actually don't see that story, so let them write what they write. And then we were entering a closed period because we did our half-one results last year. So we kind of said, you know what, we'll talk to the media once we've done the half-year results. The most important thing is keep sorting out customers, those that were affected. The most important thing is protecting our punctuality and having the ongoing dialogue with our pilots.
And it's fair to say that there's a bit of friction between the media and Ryanair. And you guys like to have some fun with the media, right? You've done a few kind of funny stunts in the past. Is that going to remain? It's a very kind of like Paddy Power kind of PR strategy.
Yeah, I think so. I think my rule of thumb is, for every one bad story that's out there, you want to have 4 good ones. We're quite an outspoken brand. We're not afraid to kind of say what we think. We're also not afraid to say sorry, as we've done over the past 2 months, and say we made a mistake. We're not trying to blame it on anybody else. It was a management failure on our part. And I think we're quite newsworthy. We're constantly innovating. I think because we are changing so much as an airline, we're expanding very, very quickly. We're going into new markets, and we're in a market that's interesting. Look, you've got Brexit on one side, which is a big concern for any airline. You've got aviation fuel going up. You've got Alitalia, Air Berlin, Monarch going out of business. So these are interesting times in the airline business. We're an interesting big airline, and we're innovating quite a lot, and I think it's good to be newsworthy. It drives a lot of free...
Is it good to have stories about Ryanair's going to charge you to use the toilets, or Ryanair's going to have standing flights? Is that really a good thing? Is that a good use of your time?
At a point in time, those were great stories for just generating free headlines. I think now what you'll see is we're generating stories by, launching new seats which give you more legroom than BA and Lufthansa, buying new aircraft, expanding in new markets. So I think now it's still a bit of the cheeky, chappy kind of Paddy Power story, but I think it's much more balanced with Ryanair growing, Ryanair expanding, Ryanair listening to customers, and much more so Ryanair being a digital innovator. As I said, 4 years ago, we had a terrible website, we didn't have an app, and now I think we've got the best airline website in Europe, we've got the most used app, and we have big ambitions in the digital space.
What's it like having Michael O'Leary as a boss, and also as the chief marketing officer, having to maybe rein him in sometimes, or do you not? Do you let him go off on a leash?
You do a bit of both. You have to do that. You have to do that at times. Look, he's been probably the most outspoken CEO in the airline business for nearly 30 years. And that's great that someone is outspoken. He loves taking risks and he's willing to take a risk. And I think you need that. And it's great having a boss who's like that, because that has allowed us to change to the degree that we've changed. And of course, at times you'll have different opinions, and it's an interesting place to work.
But do you use him as a kind of brand ambassador in the way that someone else might use Ronaldo or something?
It's from my point of view, it's interesting. I describe him as from a marketing point of view, he's one of the golf clubs in the bag, and he alone is worth.
Which one?
He alone. He's
the driver.
He's a sand wedge. He alone is he alone is worth a fortune in terms of free media coverage. Right. And from my point of view, that's great for driving visits. That's great for kind of saying, okay, the media are interested in Ryanair. But look, email and the emails that we send, the app that we have, the website, these are much more important. That's kind of real marketing, and that's really the bread and butter of visits, conversion and retention.
Now, you once famously said that you'd never spent any money on Google. Is that still the case?
Well, I have, but I don't spend it in Ryanair at the moment. And it's still the case, and I think it will continue to be the case, and it's something we're very proud of. I think it's unique that Ryanair last year became the world's most visited airline website. So imagine every single day we get over 2.5 million visits, and we do that not spending 1 cent on Google. And I think that shows that we've got incredible differentiation. Everybody, even people who don't like Ryanair, knows that Ryanair means cheap fares in Europe, and 94% of our traffic comes direct. So this is brand and natural traffic. We use CRM very effectively. We use the app very effectively. Over 70% of our traffic is now coming on mobile. So we're good at creating noise. I think we're good at driving organic, low-cost traffic. And we've got incredible sheer brand awareness. So people will use Google to navigate to Ryanair, but they'll skip over all of the dross and just get through to the Ryanair website. They see the benefit in logging on through My Ryanair. And yes, we give our fares to people like Skyscanner, but if you want to book a Ryanair flight, you have to book directly on the Ryanair website. So I think not spending any money on Google, being the world's most visited airline website, I think means we're doing a great job, and I think it's an enviable position that every other marketeer in the travel business would say, how do you do that?
I mean, I just did a search on Google on my mobile earlier for a Ryanair flight, and Google now gives me the option. I don't even need to visit the website to find out when I'm going to be able to fly back home to London. Is that kind of a help or a hindrance?
And Google, we feed Google the inventory so that they can do this, and and Google Flight Search. Look, it's a growing product. It's an interesting area. When you click on the results, the booking is made on the Ryanair website. Sure. So we're still getting the customer information. You're still logging on through My Ryanair when you make that flight booking.
But you're having to do a revenue share.
It's certainly no, we're not,
no?
And it's certainly not a hindrance to us getting traffic. So some people will click on Google. Some people will just scroll down and click directly onto the Ryanair website. Sure. I really don't mind, because the booking is made directly on the Ryanair website.
Right, so you're still controlling that customer experience. One last thing I wanted to pick you up on. I've read somewhere that you once said you wanted to be the Lidl in the air. No, sorry, the Aldi in the air and the Amazon of online. Now, those are two very disparate companies. What on earth was that about?
Being the Aldi in the air is about putting a bit of that Aldi retail spirit into Ryanair. So I'm a former retailer, and if I go back 15 years ago, when Aldi came to the UK, for example, and if you take the British consumer as they got to know Aldi 15 years ago, it was, okay, that's where you have to go if you've got no money, or it was really seen as a price-sensitive shop. Now, 15 years later, you've got Aldi, opening shops in Kensington and Chelsea, and shopping at Aldi doesn't mean you're cheap, it means you're smart with your money. So Aldi, it's very, very distinctive as a brand. They mean low cost, they mean keep it simple, and they mean that it now has become a savvy badge of honor to shop at Aldi rather than a badge of shame. That's what I mean by Aldi in the air. And then the Amazon of travel. Look, ultimately Ryanair is on its way to becoming a digital travel retailer that happens to have a low-cost airline at its center. So that's a big, big ambition for us. But as I said, we've already got the traffic. We're the world's most visited airline website. We're doing a much, much better job of selling car hire, selling hotels, selling accommodation, selling seats, selling bags. And we will sell more products to more and more customers. So the Amazon of travel is ultimately Ryanair just becoming that travel retailer that still has a unique product that you will only get Europe's fares in the Ryanair online shop, but you'll also get the type of travel product that you're looking for. And it's the lowest fares will be the magic sauce. You won't get those on any other website. And we've got 15% of the European market today. In another 5 years' time, 20% of the European market. So I think that's a great formula for Ryanair to kind of continue to be a great low-cost airline, but much more so people in Europe and ultimately around the world will say, I'm booking other travel products and services on the Ryanair platform.
Fantastic. Well, Kenny, it's time to fly. Our time is up on stage. If everybody could give a big round of applause to Ryanair CMO Kenny Jacobs. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Super.
Thanks.